Most Italian football stadiums are pretty except the one that we're going to be seeing today. They're obviously proud of the San Siro here in Milan. They sell fridge magnets of it in the train stations. I don't think there are too many stadiums around the world where you can find fridge magnets of the actual stadium inside train stations like I just showed you. But when I went, I was a little bit disappointed. It is an iconic stadium, it is one that you have to visit, and it's one I've always wanted to visit, and it's one I would recommend that everybody visits, but there are parts of it that need a lot of work. It's a very iconic stadium, but it's stuck in the past, quite like a lot of stadiums in this country. The delay, 5 minutes?
Yes.
Does this happen a lot?
Normal.
Okay.
Yes.
So I live in Scotland.
Wow, I was in Scotland 2 years ago.
Whereabouts?
I go around for holiday.
Did you go to the Highlands?
I go to Edinburgh and go to the north,
Yep.
to the Orkney Island.
Orkney Island?
Yes,
wow,
I
okay.
love very much.
It's very nice.
Fantastic.
Inverness? Did you go to Inverness? Wow, okay.
Scotland is my heart.
Milano Rovereto, Reggio Emilia, Umedio Padana, Bologna Centrale, Rimini.
As I began my train journey through the stunning scenery of northern Italy, I was looking out the window and thinking of all the great times I've had in this country. Apart from the food, which is my favourite thing about Italy, second up has to be the history. They love keeping old stuff. It's one of the best things about the country is how it looks. It is essentially one big open air museum. And you could make the argument that they're kind of a little bit like that with their stadiums. A lot of the biggest ones are very, very old indeed, but I actually do love Italian stadiums. I love Italy, I love the country. Maybe I was a little bit harsh in my intro, but let me tell you why Italy is behind the big football nations when it comes to stadiums. I've been to Monza before. Monza seems like a cool, more modern, redeveloped stadium. I've been to the San Siro and actually did really like my experience there, like I've already said once or twice. I've also been to Pro Vercelli. There are some great small stadiums in Italy. Pro Vercelli is one of them, and it's absolutely beautiful. There are a handful of clubs that actually do own their own stadium. Juve were the first to do so, and they have the biggest privately owned stadium in the country, but it still doesn't compare in size to some of the other older ones. You've got Udinese, who own their own ground at about 25,000 people. Sassuolo with one which is 21,000. Slightly smaller, still at around 21,000, is Atalanta. And Frosinone, they also have their own ground. They're currently in the Serie A, but they have an insane story of how they got there. That has about a 16,000 seater capacity, but all of the grounds that are owned by the sort of clubs in the top tier or two of Italian football are all quite small. They range from, like I say, 16,000 seats to 25,000. And unlike most big football nations, Italy's biggest stadiums are old. Look at all the biggest stadiums in England or in Scotland or in Germany or in Portugal. A lot of them will be, if not brand new, newly developed. But look at this, the San Siro. 80,000 people, the biggest stadium in Italy, opened in 1926, renovated in 35, 55, between 87 and 90, I wonder what that was for, and 2015 to 16, but still not renovated to a massively modern standard. Next up, Stadio Olimpico, a huge stadium, second biggest in Italy, shared with AS Roma and SS Lazio. Of course, the San Siro was shared as well. 1990 World Cup final was played there. It was opened in 1937, and the older the Stadio Olimpico gets, it more resembles the Colosseum than it does the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, for example. Then we have the Stadio San Nicola in Bari, home to SSC Bari, the third biggest stadium in the country when it comes to football. A huge waste of money from the 1990 World Cup, as SSC Bari throughout their history have usually been a second tier team, and even now I think they get maybe 20,000 on a good day, but you can imagine a smaller match. I mean, look how big that stadium is. 60,000 roughly. It's about 58,000 seater now. Did the builder, when the World Cup was on, think that post World Cup in the 1990s there would actually be regular athletics events there selling out? I mean, just look at the experience that fans must have there. You're so far away from the pitch. You then have the Stadio Diego Armando Maradona in Naples. Napoli, of course, SSC Napoli. That was opened in 1959 and has a capacity of 54,000 people. See, all these stadiums are still bigger than the Juve Stadium. You then have Florence's stadium, home to Fiorentina, of course, opened in 1931 and renovated, surprise, surprise, in 1990. 43,000 people in there. You then have Juve, the 6th biggest stadium in Italian football, and that was opened in 2011 and is privately owned by the football club. There's some unbelievably historic stadiums, and I'm not saying that I really dislike these stadiums. I think generally I like them. I like the history, but if you're comparing them to other big football nations, they just don't compare to the big stadiums in Germany, in the Netherlands, in Portugal, in France. They are stuck behind the times, and it's almost like the 1990 World Cup came at a really bad time for them. They were developing all of these stadiums like they did with the San Siro from the mid to late 80s, and around that time stadiums were changing massively due to the Heysel disaster, due to the Hillsborough disaster. So I feel like the Italian stadiums were developed just at the end of the old times of stadium development, and they really didn't have time to sort of catch up. But I hope that in the 2020s and maybe 2030s they can start to build more modern stadiums which give fans better experiences. That's a bit of the backstory about some of the Italian stadiums. I will pick up the story with you guys in Torino. And there it is behind me, a rare sight in Italy. A modern stadium fit for the 2020s. Yeah, there's only a handful of Italian clubs that even own their own stadium. The vast majority are owned by the municipalities, the cities, the councils of whatever area it's in. And that helped Italian clubs a long time ago, and they didn't have to build a stadium of their own. They could reinvest the money that they'd saved in that aspect into the playing squad. And that was, I guess, why during the 90s there were so many big players in Italy, and Italian football was so high in the list of leagues all around the world. Serie A was huge with Maradona, with Gascoigne, with Maldini, some huge players that played in Serie A. But it's all changed a little bit now, and the fact that Inter Milan, AC Milan both share a stadium owned by the city of Milan, Rome, Stadio Olimpico with Roma and Lazio, they can't do things like call their stadium the Allianz Stadium, which is up there. I'll overlay a clip. Look, as you can see, it is the Allianz Stadium, and I reckon that when this was opened in 2011 they probably made their money back already purely from the naming rights of the stadium alone. And this is an advantage that Juventus have that other big clubs in Italy don't. It's a nice stadium, unique in Italy, right? Because
yes, right now there are maybe 2-3 stadiums similar to this one.
yeah.
But yeah, this is unique.
Will the other teams catch up one day? Do you think AC Milan, Inter Milan, Roma, they'll all have their own stadium one day?
It depends, because this one is private.
Yeah.
Roma discuss about the stadium, but so we spend like 150 million, so it's not a big expensive.
Yeah.
In Rome they said probably 2 billion.
2 billion?
Yeah.
God.
So it's a big area.
Yeah. Whereas I
billions.
suppose you've already paid it back, right? You make the money back now.
Yeah.
Whereas for Roma, yeah.
Three years. Something about the stadium, which was built in the same area of the former stadium, Stadio delle Alpi, which was built for the World Championship in 1990. In 2008, we completely demolished, and the year after, in 2009, we start to rebuild the new one, and in 2 years we finished the opera. It's a private stadium, so it's much easier to, as I told you, to finish the opera the day that you decided to finish. We were inspired by the UK stadium because UK stadium are newer, are easier to live every day. So we have 9 hospitalities area, which begin in the match day restaurants. So 8 of them, you can just purchase it with the seasonal ticket. So you have the parking, the restaurant, and the match. And one of them, the Legends Club, you can purchase it match per match. The stadium lives every day, apart from Christmas time. Every day is open for groups, small or big, and for private that wants to have an area for meetings or something like that, or companies. So it's always allowed.
So what was the facilities like in terms of the press conferences, the media, before it got rebuilt, this stadium? Was it not very good?
No, it was not very good.
No,
was completely different. Yeah.
Okay. John Charles?
Yeah, John Charles.
Yeah, he's played for Leeds, right?
Yeah.
Leeds, yeah. Wow, it feels a lot bigger when you're down here, doesn't it, than the outside? Is it built down?
Yeah, it's 40 meters below the street.
Yeah, okay, because when you're street level, you feel like you're at the roof.
Yeah.
But then you come down and it's a lot bigger. Yeah.
From outside, you just see the second level.
Okay, yeah. And it's 41,000, okay.
Yeah, 41,500.
Wow, it was absolutely night and day in there between my experience in the San Siro compared to my experience here. Okay, the San Siro is more historic, of course it is. It's a classic and I loved my visit there. But one of the worst things about the San Siro for me was the seats. They were so faded, but you compare just the seats to this stadium and they look good, it looks branded, it looks proper, modern and new, and it really fits what Juventus are about. The San Siro, I asked the lady on the stadium tour there, why are the seats all different colours? Okay, they're faded because they haven't been touched for so long, but they're all different colours, apparently to represent the different nations that played in the 1990 World Cup, which was held in Italy. But we're now like 34 years on from that. How have they not changed the seating colour even at the San Siro? I feel like, because for every home game AC Milan have one side, for every other home game that Inter Milan play they have the other side. Why isn't one side black and blue and one side black and red? It'd be so cool if you had that huge behemoth of a stadium split between the two clubs' colours. But even to this day, 3 decades on from the World Cup, the seats are a weird colour. They don't have anything to do with the clubs that play there, and they're faded. But yes, you can compare that to this stadium here and it's just night and day. Not only this, but the changing rooms, everything is so modern, so nice, a little bit smaller, but at least they fill it up here. They fill the stadium. Most of the time they'll get 100%. And the old stadium that was here was 20,000 seats bigger than this, but they'd maybe only sell out 30,000 seats because the experience was so bad because of the running track that was around it. It was developed for the 1990 World Cup, a lot like a lot of the stadiums were in this country, and the bloke who redeveloped the stadium here in Turin that was meant for Juventus after the World Cup had apparently never seen a football game in his life, and you can tell by the design of the stadium. But at least now Juventus bought this land and they turned it into a proper stadium that they can call home. Anyway, yes, we've looked inside the stadium. Let's learn a bit about the history of Juventus and head inside the museum. After a century of history, it has become a legendary club. Its name, colours and jersey are known throughout the world. Speaking of their colours and jersey, they wouldn't have the colours that they have without Notts County. This is everywhere Juventus have played They played in Swindon. When did Juve play Swindon? This is a medal for their first ever Scudetto win. Their first ever championship. Look at that. Look at what it looked like back then. People just stood around a house, a little bit different to the grand stadiums that they have today, and particularly the stadium we've just looked around. And it's quite a unique name, but look, here it tells you how they were formed. Starting its foundation back in 1897, the founding fathers were students of a high school in Turin who, being very young, between 15 and 17 years old, chose to call their team Juventus, youth. But they decided to name it Latin, replace the I with a J, and that is why they're called Juventus. Here we go, our first mention of Notts County there. So I think somebody went to Nottingham to source kits. They used to play in pink. He went to try and find kits, but there was a mix-up with the order, and then they were left with Notts County's stripes, and they've been wearing Notts County's kits, or the colours of Notts County, ever since. So Italy have been champions of the world 4 times in 34, 38, 82 and 2006. And during those 4 World Cup wins, they've had a lot of Juventus players represent them. Most recently in 2006, you got your Buffons, your Del Pieros, and obviously your Cannavaros. Wow, I'm not going to run you through everything, but these are all the records of Juventus. This is, like, some of these are just absolutely mind-blowing. First team to win the 20-team league without losing a match. First club in the world with the amount of players given to World Cup winning sides. First club in Italy by number of fans. The first club to win 10 titles. First club to win 20 titles. First club to win 30 titles within Italy. First and only club in Italy to have won at least 1 trophy for 10 seasons in a row. Some of these are absolutely insane and just prove what a big club they are. How crazy is it that it took until 2011 for a big team in Italy to actually own their own ground and have the freedom to do what they want with it in terms of hospitality, in terms of the branding, in terms of selling sponsorship, in terms of anything, redevelopments, a club shop. AC Milan, Inter Milan, Roma, Lazio, Fiorentina, I guess Genoa as well, some really big clubs. They're sort of hamstrung because they don't own their own ground and it's all part of the council, and these things, particularly in Italy, to change things and to redevelop if they're owned by the municipalities, take so long to sort out. I always love my visits to Italy. Some of the stadiums are just absolutely amazing. Like I say, I went to Vercelli recently, so I'll leave that video on screen. There's so many Italian stories to be told, and the more I look into Italian football since researching this video and researching Italian stadiums and football, the more it's making me want to go back. So if you have any suggestions, let me know in the comment section below and I will do my best to get there. Please do continue watching. Ciao and arrivederci.